Okay, we're gonna get started now. It is 1:01, 1:02 almost, and I just wanted to, out of respect for everyone's time, just get going. Today's session is brought to you by Maryland Department of Disabilities. The focus of the session is Web Accessibility 101. This is the introduction webinar session on web accessibility. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from the UK. I'm a former special education teacher and school administrator. I have a background also in assistive technology, master's degree from George Mason University, and postgraduate certificate as well from there as well. Went to school in London and in Leeds, back home in the UK. I'm a certified expert witness in assistive and inclusive technologies. I'm certified by the IAAP, which is the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And a fun and interesting fact about myself is I used to work on a submarine off the coast of West Africa. So I'm hoping that everyone can still hear me okay. If they can't, throw that in the chat so I'll know. So what is the IT Accessibility Initiative? It's something I'm a part of. We're a small team. We work out of Maryland Department of Disabilities. The initiative is to support state agencies and entities with complying with Maryland's non-visual access standards. The main purpose of the initiative and my role Okay, that's good. I'll follow up with chat at the end, or if I need to follow up with chat via email, I'll do that. Appreciate that. Big focus of ours is to improve policies and practices in the state in regards to IT procurement and to ensure that equal access to state agencies and information technology for citizens with disabilities. So our services, the IT Accessibility Initiative staff, we provide the following supports and services. We do evaluations of technology platforms within state government. We offer a consultation to a variety of state agencies. We provide technical assistance, information technology accessibility training, such as this one right now, and internships and mentoring to future UX designers and IT professionals. We created an internship program and a curriculum, and we've partnered with a local university, and it's been fantastic. We've had, I think this is our third intern who is just wrapping up next week, and all of the interns have been absolutely fantastic. We've given them an introduction to what accessibility is, and they've all successfully learned how to test websites for accessibility. They do a pretty decent job. So they worked on doing Section 508 testing, and by the end of the internship, they've all created a Section 508 testing report. So they these are transferable and transferable skills that they can take to their workplace in their future employment. Addenda. So just a little quick go through of what we do, some of the barriers to access, some of the potential alternate access methods, looking at WCAG, testing, content remediation, design, and then just a wrap up. So there's several barriers to access information technology. One of the obvious ones is vision, whether that's blindness, low vision, or color blindness, or some type of visual disorder. Next is hearing. If you're hearing impaired, it can impact your ability to access digital content, especially if the site or the content is not accessible. Cognitive. So if you have a cognitive disability, whether that's an intellectual disability, a learning disability, or perhaps a traumatic brain injury, or perhaps some other issue, maybe perhaps some type of seizure disorder. These are all potential barriers to access. Physical disability. does the individual who's trying to access the site, do they have a software application? Do they have cerebral palsy or some other physical disability do they have? We're also fine motor challenges which would impact and which would impact accessibility. Okay, so we've got some alternate access methods. So we're thinking of physical devices such as, for example, there's adaptive keyboards that can be very helpful for people with physical disabilities when they're trying to access websites and software and applications and digital content. We also have adapted mice. This could be, for example, this is like a head mouse. So an individual could use their, a head mouse in conjunction with, a special baseball cap they buy, or placing a metallic dot on the end of a baseball cap or a hat or a visor or even the head if need be. So it's just another way of accessing their computer and also accessing, software and applications and internet. Closed captioning, extremely important. Screen magnification, very important for people with low vision and other visual challenges. And this one in particular, screen magnification, is Zoom text. Zoom text will provide screen magnification and will also, if the site's accessible, will also provide text to speech. And then finally, JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech. JAWS traditionally, it's a screen reader. It's a software solution for individuals who are blind or low vision, and they need to access a computer environment and the internet and documents. They'll be able to use the screen reading technology to interact. And this would be keyboard only. Okay, so something you may or may not have heard of is the W3C. They are the Worldwide Web Consortium. It's an international community, a variety of members. Some of the members are IT professionals, some are educators, some are academics, some are developers. It's a large internet community, and they have full-time staff, they have volunteers, and these are the folks that do a lot of different things. But W3C do one thing in particular that's extremely important. They actually develop the web accessibility standards. Web accessibility standards are the standards that, for example, Maryland uses, the federal government uses, other states uses, it's used all around the world. So these web accessibility guidelines are extremely important. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, more commonly known as WCAG, make sure the content is accessible for everybody. There is several guiding principles of WCAG, and the first one is digital content needs to be perceivable. So that means available to everyone's senses. So it doesn't matter if the person is sighted, not sighted, has low vision, is deaf or hard of hearing. So that everybody's senses, it needs to work. Next, operable. So the content, the controls, and navigation user interface needs to work for everybody. So content needs to be operable. Next, understandable. So the information and the user interface needs to be logical, coherent, and the infrastructure within that user interface needs to make sense. So, in the Western world, we read from left to right and top to bottom. Other places in the world, they don't do that, but in the West, we read from left to right, top to bottom. And so that would be logical and coherent, at least for English and, Anglophones and Francophones, and the Romance languages too. Robust. So digital content needs to be robust. So the content needs to be able to be interpreted using assistive technologies such as screen readers, such as text-to-speech engines, and screen magnification tools. So the content has to be accessible. So of the four principles we just talked about, each of the four principles has respective guidelines. So the principles are the overarching infrastructure, and as think of them as the parents, and then each parent has children, and those children are effectively the guidelines. And there's, the guidelines are quite complex. If you interact with the IT access team, either myself, which is Andrew, or my coworker Stephen, we like to think that we're fairly familiar with the guidelines, and if not, we know where to get that information from. And each guideline, so these children all have components to them, and those components are noted as the success criteria. So what each website or software application or even document needs to meet, they would be the success criteria. And the success criteria are what, when we're testing sites, or when we're testing websites, or we're testing applications, or we're testing devices, this is what we would be looking for. We'd be looking to, hey, does this particular IT solution meet this particular success criteria? So within the state of Maryland, we're really focused on the federal guidelines, and obviously Maryland Non-Visual Access Clause, which is based on the federal guidelines, which is adopted. Feds have adopted WCAG 2.0. The state in turn has effectively adopted the same thing. There is something else called 2.1, which is just kind of that next level up from that. I think long term, the state will look to move to WCAG 2.1 down the road, as it's more all-encompassing. But in regards to WCAG 2.0 and 2.1, there are three particular conformance levels. First is level A. That's the minimum criteria. If we notice level A issues when we're testing, level A issues are what we would describe as critical blockers. So we shouldn't have a website, doesn't matter whether it's state or public or private or whatever. You want to avoid having websites that are full of critical blockers, because these level A issues are going to impact the end user, and likely prevent them from accessing your content. Level AA, which is kind of the medium level of conformance and compliance. These are still, very important. We definitely want to try to make sure there's as few level AA issues as possible. And then finally, you have AAA. AAA compliance. That's the gold standard. That would be, fantastic if every website in the world was, 2.1 AAA compliant. That would be absolutely fantastic, and it would make life easier for everybody. Realistically, that's not the case at this time. I'm sure in the future we'll get there. I think there's definitely a big movement, and there's a lot of noise being made around accessibility. So I think it's we're definitely all heading in the right direction. But it's going to take quite a few folks and a lot of invested stakeholders for to get to that level of accessibility, conformance, and compliance. I see a question that's just popped up. Please explain what is in these various levels. Okay, I hope I've already done that. So the level A is so I can just go back over it real quick. This is obviously this is the 101. So this is the basic kind of fundamental session today. And there's another session after this, not today, but it's called the 102, which would get, it would be a more deeper dive into the different conformance levels. So level A, these are the critical blockers. You need to make sure the websites have that. Level AA, it's extremely important. These are recommendations. You need to make sure that websites aren't rated with level A accessibility issues. So you want to make sure your site complies with level A, complies with level AA, and ideally complies with level AAA. Hopefully that's answered your question. If not, we can connect offline at the end. So the law, just to get into the law, there's several laws in regards to accessibility. And there's actually it's quite involved. We have the first one that I can think of that comes to mind, at least that I've listed out, is the Americans with Disability Act, Title II. So this protects individuals with disabilities from being discriminated against based on their disability when a state government, local municipalities, cities, federal government basically provide services, programs, and activities, which would also come into websites too. Electronic documents. So obviously, again, federal, state, local government websites, electronic communication, digital content, have to be accessible. Title III, a little different, still within the ADA, prohibits discrimination against on the basis of disabilities in places of public accommodations. So if you're thinking of banks, if you're thinking of places where you would pay taxes, you're thinking where you could buy stocks, and that also would include e-commerce sites. So these e-commerce sites, they would also have to be accessible too. Next, we have Section 508, the 1973 Rehab Act. So when you think of website testing, I think a lot of ADA/Section 508 testing, or Maryland non-visual access. These are three terms that we kind of use interchangeably quite a bit, even though they're different laws, whether the federal or state, but ultimately it's the same premise that as websites, they really should comply with, WCAG 2.0, single A and double A, as in line with the federal government. Oh, sorry, Joanne Schneider. So what are those critical blocker issues? So there's lots and lots of potential critical blocker issues. Yeah, we can definitely talk offline. We could talk for like 5 hours about that. So let's not do that now. But let's connect after. Okay, physical businesses within the United States, they also need to be accessible. Based on a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling, basically effectively. That website needs to be accessible. If they have a physical bricks and mortar location, that would need to be accessible. So if you, for example, you ran, big takeaway business, so you have like takeout food, whether it's pizza or whatever, gyros. If you have this big company that sells pizzas, for example, and you can go in there and you can walk through the door and you can either go in there with a walker or you just walk in yourself, or you go in there with a wheelchair. That physical location has to be accessible. Also, that respective website now has to be accessible. So that was definitely an important determination by the Supreme Court. Okay, the non-visual access clause, I've mentioned it a little earlier. So the latest iteration of the non-visual access clause out of Maryland is from 2018. The non-visual access standards have been updated through new legislation, and the latest iteration of this law that came out, I believe, around 2005 within Maryland Code. Effectively now, the state government, when they're interacting with vendors, and if a vendor hypothetically provided the state of Maryland with an IT solution that was inaccessible, if the state has determined it was inaccessible, and we've alerted the vendor, hey, your product's inaccessible, it doesn't work properly for people with disabilities, the vendor has X amount of time to fix that. If they didn't fix it within X amount of time, hopefully this would never happen, but the state can then start levying financial penalties against this company, and the penalties are quite heavy. Not hundreds, it's more like thousands and thousands of dollars in penalties. So it provides an enforcement capability in regards to IT procurement for solicitations, that we've, the state has, went through and procured an IT solution. And if hypothetically, if it was a case where an IT solution was inaccessible, the state has obviously various levels of recourse, but one of them would be financial penalties. So that was what happened within that 2018 update of the Maryland non-visual access clause. So these regulations are intended to ensure that websites, digital content, IT solutions are accessible for individuals who are blind or visual disabilities. Compliance with the standards is mandatory, especially in the procurement, IT solutions, and the provision of IT services across the state. So is it going to be expensive, would be the question. So web accessibility compliance can be very expensive. This is an example of one company that recently got hit with an extremely large lawsuit. And obviously legal fees, obviously that's clicking on towards, $10 million, which is obviously a lot of money. We also have Netflix, as a lot of us like to watch and listen to. They also had some legal issues in regards to captions and inaccessibility of the application. So does it work? So switching gears and thinking about your digital content, whether you have a small business, whether you work for state government, whether you work for municipal government, whether you work private sector, make sure you test your website and its content with an accessibility checker to figure out is your IT up to scratch? Does it work? If possible, attempt to test your site and your content manually. So we're gonna get into some of that in a second. Okay, so I'm going to introduce a few testing tools. The first one that I'd like to share out is Wave. There might be some people. I'm just gonna, if you could just throw it in chat. If anyone has come across the Wave accessibility tool. I'll just watch chat for a second there, see if anyone's come across that before. If you've attended this one-on-one session before, you've definitely come across it because we cover it each and every time. Yeah, okay. Nicole has got some experience with that. Good. Okay, so let's. I'm gonna try to switch screens, make sure I can do that without losing you guys. So let me switch screens and see if we can get another share going. Okay, Andrea's used it too. Awesome. Okay, so let me let's do a new share. Okay. Okay, does everybody see a website? It's Dubai.com. Awesome. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate that. Okay. So we're looking at Dubai.com. So maybe some of you guys are thinking about going on vacation to Dubai. It seems like a pretty awesome place to go. But I wanted to, no particular reason, I just thought of a random place to check, and here we are checking Dubai.com. So let's, so we have a URL there. It's literally Dubai.com, very simple. And we're just gonna copy the URL. We're gonna go to Wave, which is the web tool. Copy that URL over. Oh, here we go. And I'm just gonna, this is the Wave Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. It is an automated testing tool. It allows anybody to test the website. However, I would say that it's an awesome tool, but it only allows you to check one page of a site at a time. So if you have a really simple website, maybe it's a small business, or maybe whatever, you work for a small agency, and you pay your website's like 4 or 5 pages. This is an excellent tool. We use this tool all the time. It's very helpful. It is automated, but it has some really, very awesome features. So I'm just going to hit scan and see what we come up with. Okay, so if you can see the screen, you will be looking at, to the left, we have the control, we have the results of the assessment. And to the right, we have the condensed version of the website with some kind of visual indicators lit in icons all over the place. So visually extremely confusing. So that can be a little challenging at first. However, it does highlight issues that makes it a bit easier if you're inexperienced with accessibility testing. Okay, so let's just kind of have a little look through. So Wave breaks things up into a few different ways. First way, it looks at errors, which obviously errors are usually errors. Sometimes errors are actually false positives. Not that often, but occasionally it can be a false positive. Alerts, they're potential issues. Sometimes it's an issue, sometimes it's just a false issue. But it is basically, hey, it's basically learning, hey, have a look at this. Structural elements, it's basically how your website is structured. It's the hidden infrastructure within a site that happens within the site, whether that's landmarks, HTML5 landmarks, hopefully you've got those on your site, or it's H1 through H6. And that's the heading infrastructure. Then we have contrast errors. So the automated tool attempts to determine contrast errors. This is the contrast errors, which are called contrast errors. This is usually the area where we see the most false positives. So we use another tool as well for that, and we might have time to show that tool too. Features, these are features within the site, and this is ARIA, which is it's more coding which helps make a site accessible to individuals that rely on screen reading technology in a nutshell. So we look at the details. And we've come back with a total of 88 errors on the site, and 36 of those errors are missing alt text. So if the alternative text is missing, it's going to make it extremely difficult if you're a screen reader user. Because if you're a screen reader user, you would be you'd be going through the site, and then you would come across this inaccessible image or table, and then it might say something, it might say nothing, it may say just a string of numbers. So that we can select one, for example. These 36 icons represent the 36 missing. So let's just select one right here. Okay. Oh, that's single text, sorry. Let's select the wrong one. Let's have a look from the single text. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it looks like these little stars here are the missing. There's a little star there, and next to it there's a missing alt text. So if we select that, it says missing alt text, image alternative is not present. And we can, if you hit reference, it explains what it means. So it gives you a definition of what alt text is, why it matters, what to do, how to fix it. Sometimes the solution is actually this. I just highlighted it, which is it's a null alt text attribute, which effectively means if you would use that particular null alt text to ensure that a screen reader ignores something. So like these little stars here, they don't have any meaning, that they don't provide context. From my understanding, they don't seem like they're providing. Actually, they do. No, 3, 4. No, they don't. Everyone's the same. Actually, they do. They do provide. So, okay. So they do actually provide context, but this could probably be described in a different way. So each star represents the star rating of a hotel. Sorry, I hadn't even looked at the site before. So each one. So this is obviously, this is a 5-star hotel. This is a 5-star hotel. This is a 3. This is a 4. This is a 5-star. This is a 4-star. Okay. So the alt text could be. So maybe you could have the first, X amount. You could have some of these tagged with a null alt attribute, and you could maybe have one tagged as, this hotel is rated 4 stars, or you could have the alt on the image. So it could say like you could say the image. It could say Dubai International Airport Hotel rated 4 stars. It would be a way to convey that meaning. So that's a possibility. Okay. there's other issues. Okay, linked image missing alt text. So a linked image is an image that you can select and click on, and it will take you somewhere else within the site. So that's an image. So it's a link and it's an image. So linked images, best practice would be to have alt text accompanying that, so that when a screen reader user come across that linked image, they can be like, oh, that's the Dubai International Airport Hotel, and oh, look, it's 5 stars. But I don't really want to go to that. I want to go stay at a different hotel. So I don't even need to select that linked image, because if I click on that, it's going to take me to another website. And I don't need to do that. I want to go somewhere else. I want to stay at maybe the Jumeirah Lakes Towers instead. So it's important. Next, we have form field labels. So each and every form on a website needs to be marked. It needs to be coded correctly. So if you have a form where you fill something out, there has to be a label. So label 4, and then a corresponding ID, and those two things have to match to talk to each other. Next, we have a language missing or invalid. So that would be, yep, that's right up the top. We click on that. So this document hasn't, when whoever authored this page, they didn't actually know what language it was. So is it English or is it Arabic? I know we can all say it's English on here, but they didn't actually add that language attribute value. So that's actually an accessibility violation, and that's something they would need to take care of. What else we got? We got an empty link here. So I can find it. Okay. So if we go to a reference, an empty link is a link that contains no text. It tells you why it matters. It's for people who use keyboards, keyboard only, or screen reader users. It tells you how to fix it, and then it even tells you like the standards. These are the guidelines, the WCAG guidelines, and then you can even hit code, and the code will pop up. So if you look in between, there's no link text. The link text would be right here. I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing. It would be in between. Yeah, it would just be in between there, right there. And the link text could say the hotel's name or whatever it is, whatever descriptive, unique name that you're going to have for that particular link text. Okay. So we're going to, I'm looking at the time. So we're going to switch gears, and we're going to go back to the slide deck to introduce a new tool. So I'll just bear with me for a second. Okay, so next tool we're going to introduce is Andy. Andy is a tool that I've used a lot this year. It's automated, and it has automated features, and it also is a manual inspection tool too. So let me show you Andy. So we're going to go back to the websites. I'm going to hit share. I'm hoping everyone can see everything. I'm going to click on. Okay, so this website is from Wales, which is part of the UK, and there's some accessibility issues on the website, and I'm just gonna just show you those. So the inspection tool that we're gonna use is Andy. It's in my favorites there. So this is not cooperating. No, it is. Okay, so can everybody see Andy? Did Andy appear at the top of the screen? Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that chat. So Andy is an automated / manual inspection tool that the federal government actually used. The federal government developed it through an association between, I believe it was the Social Security Administration and the Department of Homeland Security. So it is if you become a trusted tester, Department of Homeland Security trusted tester, which it's a training certification I'm actually working on. It takes a lot of time, but I'm in the midst of it. this is the inspection tool that you would utilize. So it allows you to inspect all of the focusable elements on a screen. So I don't want to get too complicated, but so it breaks it down into focusable elements, graphics and images. That's all the focusable elements. That's everything that's highlighted on the screen, or red line, boom. What Andy does is it'll tell you the Andy output, and that's his third-party ad content. So what the Andy output stand for is that's what a screen reader would announce. So it allows me to, as I'm testing, hey, what would a screen reader announce as I'm testing a website? So it's very helpful. It allows me to look at things like tab order. So these are marked up. So if I was a keyboard-only user, and I was tabbing through, hey, this problem, I can see this problem's right here. As I was tapping through websites, I was hitting that tab key over and over again to negotiate through the site, navigate through the site. It'll jump through the content in the order of the numbers. So this, I see issues because I'm looking in this nav menu, and there's some things right here. These are outside of keyboard tab order. So those things aren't actually marked up. So those, there should be numbers next to those. Sorry, just freaking. I think it's freaking out a little bit. Just a second. So yeah, it will highlight issues with elements if this element doesn't have an accessible name, like alt text. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of AdWords popping up here. Then graphics and images. So it's found 151 images. It's found graphic alerts. So let's hit graphic alerts. Screen reader will not recognize this image. Screen reader will not recognize. So there's lots of issues here. If we want to navigate through the issues, we would just go through here, and you can see that there's a focus indicator. That's the pink rectangle, and Andy will see Andy output what's happening, and it'll tell you if there's like an ARIA label there, and the ARIA label is green, so that means it's correct, and it's search, Facebook, and we can just go through and you can manually inspect all of the focusable elements. If you jump around like we are right now, you'll notice that some things aren't getting focused. So the pink little rectangular square isn't going around everything. So that to me, I automatically realize that there's some issues as well. And these symbols here, this little graphic isn't being read by a screen reader. So there's issues there with that. Links and buttons, there's 644 links. There's 14 issues here with the links. There's misuses of the alt attribute. And then you can hit on the view links, and then you can see all of the links. And if there's an issue with the link, the issue would be here. Okay, there's an issue with the link here, and this one is ambiguous name. So it has this particular link. Okay, so this particular link has the same text as another link, but it has a different href, so it belongs elsewhere. Different content. So it identifies like all of the issues. It's really, really helpful. If you're not familiar with website testing, it can be a little complex when you're looking through like 600 and something links and you're looking at lots of issues. Again, I use this pretty much daily. I use this daily basically. This is one of the testing tools I use. And I just wanted to introduce Andy to you. And it also looks at like things like, let's have a quick look at structure. Oh, great. So if we look at the structure here on the right-hand side, the first one is live breaking news blog, which is H2. That might be okay, but the problem is I'm looking through the rest of these right here, and there's no H1. H1, heading level 1, should always be a heading level 1. That's an important part of an infrastructure of a web page. Each page should have one H1. Shouldn't have multiple H1s, but should definitely have one H1. That's an accessible coding best practice, so that can be helpful. Look in chat. Is this a Google Chrome plugin? It's Andrea. It's not a Google Chrome plugin. It basically just sits in your bookmarks, and it's set up in this way as a bookmark, obviously to meet Department of Homeland security requirements. So you can have it on, a federal government laptop that might be in a secure environment, and so this was, approved, with the stringent security, but now it's not a plugin per se. There's obviously we could spend all day going through this, but I just wanted to give you guys a little taste of it. So let me switch back and switch speeds and go back to the slide deck. DQX. Let's have a quick look at DQX. Just wanted you guys to just get a chance to sample as many sites, as many of the testing tools as we could. Again, we're not really able to go into depth with them, but we can have a little look at them. So PremierLeague.com. So for those that like soccer or football, this is an awesome website. However, there's lots of accessibility issues with it. So to activate DQ, I would just do a little right click. I would hit inspect, like I was going to manually inspect the elements. I would then move along and then go to Axe Dev Tools. And Axe Dev Tools, I can then scan all over the page, and it tells me, all of the issues here, all of the automatic issues here. It's made by the folks at DQ. It's extremely accurate. It's categorized 81 critical issues, 78 serious ones, moderate, minor, and all of the results are here. And you could go through and you could spend a lot of time looking at this. But I just wanted to introduce you to that tool. You can, it's a free tool. You can just go on. This one is through Chrome, so you can just go on and go through the Chrome store and add it to your Chrome browser, and you'll have lots of fun with Axe Dev Tools. But again, it's an automated tool. It allows you to go in there and hit inspect and look at the code too. So yeah, it's super helpful. Okay, let's just switch gears again. So just remember, sometimes vendors will sell you an accessible template. If you're sold an accessible template, it doesn't necessarily mean you're being sold an accessible website. Be extremely cautious with accessible overlays. There's several companies now they're saying, hey, just give us money and we'll make your website accessible to everybody. And effectively it's called an accessibility overlay. And it is, it's a bit of a con, really. It doesn't actually work properly. So for individuals that rely on screen readers and screen magnification, basically people with disabilities who would really benefit from this type of technology, these accessible overlays do not actually work. So be very leery if you're ever sold, or if you have a vendor reach out to you and tries to sell you some type of accessibility toolbar overlay, a way of making a website fully accessible. Just be very careful and cautious about that. Accessible content often is key. It's huge, and it's extremely important to make sure that your content is accessible. And that's obviously you've got to have that accessible template, and also so the template works for everybody, and also make sure that the content is also accessible. To learn more about this, I would definitely recommend you guys coming back and attending Stephen's session on Web Accessibility 102. He does a fantastic job with taking it to that next level. So this is definitely this is more of an introduction kind of overview, get your feet wet. Stephen's more of a deeper dive. Stephen's sessions is more of a deeper dive in accessibility, and you'll get into how to make your content accessible. So we've looked over, let me just get some of these going. So if you're doing manual testing, so anyone can do manual testing. If you've attended some of these sessions, you've went to, you've learned about accessibility, you can have a look through your site. For example, is the font of the text easy to read. So you think about that. Is the color used on the site, is that easy to read, or have they used like a white background with light gray text and it's really difficult for you to read? If it's really difficult for you to read, that the background and foreground color contrast is likely not visually accessible. Can you use the keyboard to navigate all the buttons, links, and form fields? Can you tab through it? Can you use the arrow keys? Does it work? If you hit enter, do things move to the next slide, or can you interact with, are the controls all set up correctly? These are things that you can definitely look at. Can you tab through the whole web page? Is it possible? Is there maybe like a Twitter widget somewhere on the web page? So if you actually tab into it, the Twitter widget, do you get trapped in the widget? So if you keep hitting tab, you're gonna have to tab through like 3,000 Twitter threads, 2,000, 3,000 Twitter tweets. So is there making sure there's no keyboard traps? A trap is where a keyboard user cannot escape a section of the website. They're effectively trapped in there. There's no way out. Keyboard traps do occur, so it's important to make sure that there's no keyboard traps within your content. So some things to think about for accessible design. Site needs to be keyboard friendly, needs to be keyboard navigable. Tagging web content correctly, really, really important, so that, if you're, however your site's set up, make sure that you have that H1, is that kind of that main important point on your website, whether it's the kind of the main title of the website or the particular web page, and make sure that you've used that H2 through 6 to set up. And H2 is the second most important after H1, and then H6 the least important. And make sure you tagged all that content correctly. Using the heading structure to appropriately structure your site, that's huge. Using logical order. So when you read your website, is it logical, or is it kind of all over the place? It's really important that content is presented in a logical and coherent manner. Enable resizable text. If you're using a mobile phone, can you interact? Can you use can you use your iPhone or your Android's native accessibility features to enlarge the text? Can you zoom and hit the magnification buttons without issues, or does one part of your website enlarge and it's things resize, and other elements of your website, nothing happens? So the text size stays the same, even though things around them are getting larger. So also huge, we've talked about this. So each, images need to have that. Each image needs to make sure that it has alt text. Linked images, that needs alt text. Graphics, alt text. Links, very important that those links, if that link has an accessible name. We did one quick, we touched on it during a little earlier, as I think we were looking through Wave. Important that links, the link text is unique, not like click here, but describing where you go. Link text should be descriptive, and it should alert the end user where they're going to head to. And if there's any elements within the website that require alt text, make sure, and it's non-text, make sure that those focusable elements have that in there. What else? All images have alt text. Tables are only use tables for tabular data. Make sure you use, if you're using the table headings, which you should, make sure the table headings, there's a name with them. So if it's, so that people can understand like what the headers are. Carefully use colors and contrast. Make sure that all audio comes along with captions. Avoid flash video content. Descriptions of videos, yeah. So if you've got a video there, and if you can provide a description, that'll be fantastic. Okay, so using headings correctly.
So using headings for web page organization navigation is vital. Obviously, the most important is H1. The least important is H6. If we look at the image below, you can see the image below. It just gives you some examples of how you could organize content within your website. Obviously, starting with H1 is typically starting as H1 is the most important. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing in tab order, in DOM order, document object model order. So usually is though, and you start with H1 at the top, and then you can move down to H2s, and then H3s, and then if you need to do another H2, and H3s would be like the children underneath, and so on, as you see here. It just depends on how you set your site up. But H1 doesn't need to be the first thing in the document model order. What really should be the first thing, like when you first that end user first hits tab, it really should be the skip to main content, and that should go to the main content block. And ideally, you really want, not even ideally, that if I hit tab and I go to that skip to main content link, not just hear it announced to screen reader users, but it really should be visible on focus as well. So you tab, and then the word skip to main content is going to appear in the top left-hand side of your screen likely. And then, you can hit that if you wanted to, and then it'll jump you to that main content. And that's super important. Nobody wants to hit the tab key 17 times to get to the main content. So looking at accessible design for mobile, make sure that responsive design is used throughout. Responsive design is making sure that the website responds to the native accessibility features. Make sure that you can zoom. If you make if you pinch or squeeze and you make the text size bigger, that the text will respond by either removing content, removing photos, removing links, and just kind of squeezing down. If you pull up your iPhone right now and you go on to like Nike.com or something like that, for example, and you'll notice that the website looks different in desktop mode than it does in desktop mode. If you start increasing the size of the text using the native features, you'll notice that content starts disappearing and only the key content is remaining. So that's great for people that have, low vision, or maybe some older people that have, whether it's macular degeneration or whether the eyesight's, just deteriorating, and they'd like to have larger text on screen. Make sure there's no traps situation. Again, that's where the user's trapped on escape. Web content must be able to be dismissed or navigated away from if activated by touch. So if you tap on something and something pops up, there has to be a way to get out of that content. I ensure there's always an accessible escape route. Making sure that you don't place icons too close together. If you're thinking about touch target size, the icons need to be large enough so the end user can actually touch them with their fingers, especially individuals that have like fine motor challenges. Especially when if you're testing on mobile, it's a good thing to look for. Dead space. There needs to be enough space in between those icons so that people with some fine motor challenges can actually differentiate and target the individual icons or options within the site. It's vital that all the important information is still present in reader or simplified view. So if you guys want to learn more, and you're interested, and this has sparked an interest, I definitely recommend you come to our future sessions. Our sessions do get more involved in the testing and how to make sure that you're, authoring an accessible website. This is kind of like the higher level overview, just getting your feet wet on lots of different topics. So I'm going to go and look at chat. I'm going to look at QA. If you want to learn more about accessibility, definitely look at this great conference coming up. It's M-Enabling. It's coming up this fall, and it's going to be in the DC area. DQ University is where I learned a lot about accessibility. It's a great resource. Some of the stuff is, I believe, free. Some of it you have to pay for, if not probably most of it, but there is some free stuff there. And obviously our blog as well, we got awesome stuff on there as well. So let me go to the chat and see what we got in chat. Okay, sorry. Shoot, sorry. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, how does one get access to Andy? So if you just Google SSA Andy, you'll be able to you'll see the link and you'll be able to add it to your web browser. Will the slide be shared? Yes. So I hope this was helpful. I know it was pretty fast paced, and I hope that you guys got a lot out of it. And I hope it sparked some interest in accessibility. But if you guys have, if you're within state government, feel free to reach out at any time, whether you have a concern about a website within your department or other departments. If you're a constituent of Maryland, feel free to reach out at any time and say, hey, your website's awesome. Hey, this website doesn't work properly. And my team will test it, we'll figure it out, we'll work with the agency, we'll work with the vendor, and we'll try to make sure things happen. We are definitely as proactive as possible, and we want to make sure that all Marylanders can access our content. And my email address, I'm just going to put it in the chat because I see people might want that. So it's andrew.drummond@maryland.gov. I'm a resource to constituents. If any constituents have a concern, or if any state employees, please reach out. If you're outside of the state and you just want to chat, reach out to me, and I'll try to get back to you. I'm extremely busy, but I will try to get back to you. Is there any more questions in the chat before we get wrapped up for today? No more questions. Well, where to sign up for websites. So if you go to Maryland Department of Disabilities website and you look for web accessibility, you will see our training calendar there, and you'll be able to go in there and sign up for the sessions. The next session is, I believe it's accessible gaming, and that's going to be by Stephen Plotchik, who's my coworker. It's going to be a great session. So you learn more about accessible gaming. I think it's going to be focused on individuals that have, I think physical disabilities, physical impairments. I could be wrong, but it's going to be an accessible gaming session. It'll be a lot of fun. And it'll be sometime in the middle of August. Let's see any more chat. Is there an email listserv to join? If anyone wants to for future trainings, so yeah, if you found out about this training, if you got the email blast, and that's how you found out about this training, that's the email list. But if you just want to get added to our general email list, just shoot me an email and we'll do that. But just to respect everybody's time, we are wrapping up in about 30 seconds. So I hope that everybody found this session helpful. And I'll look at another one. Yes, I do. I work for Lori. Yep. No worries. Yep. So thank you so much for everyone. Appreciate you guys attending. If anyone wants to follow up with me, you guys can reach out to me via email, and I will share this out to everybody who attended today. Have a good one. Bye for now. Bye.